Hi, this is Annie Grace, and welcome to this Naked Mind podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. And today I have a great guest. Her name is Sheila, and Sheila is here really to just share her story. So thank you, Sheila. Thank you for being here, being brave, being courageous. That's awesome. I really appreciate it.
It is very brave and courageous of me. So, yeah, because I haven't shared my story with many people. Even those people close to me.
It's amazing. It's so cool because it's unreal how, these stories are just so incredibly powerful for people, they relate to something, they relate to you. So it's just great. So why don't you back us up way up and sort of start at the beginning?
Okay. Well, let me start with saying that it's 18 months since I had my last sip of wine.
Beautiful. That's awesome. Congratulations.
My goal on my 65th year was that at the beginning of the year, I felt I wanted to be alcohol free. And I wanted to be a really good example to my children on my 65th birthday. And I feel I did it, and I feel I've been as free as a bird ever since. So it's been a wonderful feeling. But let me sort of take you through my story. I feel I had a 45-year history, with alcohol. I think it's been, and it's been a very long haul. But I feel it was, I just feel really amazing now. And I feel incredible relief, but obviously it is a very hard, I did find it a hard transition. But I have enormous thanks to you, because I feel through that 45 years, I had thought about several times about, I felt I was drinking too much and I should stop. I read some books through the years. I even, after my mother passed away 7 years ago, I even met with my physician to share with her I felt I was drinking too much. But it was really interesting. She asked me how much I was drinking. And I just said, 2 to 3 glasses of wine a night. But she felt that wasn't bad. And she sort of said that, just don't worry about it. But then I did some counseling too. And it was interesting, even the counselor felt I didn't have a problem. And there was no reason why I should sort of stop drinking my wine. So, there I was, but anyway, I didn't have any reason not to drink wine. I feel, well, I've gone to the experts, they feel everything's okay.
And how are you feeling? Like, what were the triggers for you that were like, the little alert lights?
I would be, okay, it was the traditional story. I would be, the evening would be a bit of a blur. I would wake up at 2 and 3 in the morning, feeling anxious, frustrated with myself. I was feeling depressed in the morning because, again, I felt I'd fallen into that trap of every night I would say, well, I'm not going to have wine tonight. And it was that vicious cycle. So, that's where I was. But, basically my history is, I was raised in England, but, I moved here 30 years ago from England. And in England, it was very much the accepted thing. Dinner or Sunday dinner or an evening wasn't a special meal unless you had wine, with dinner. And in England, on a Sunday lunch, you would have sherry before dinner, you would have wine with dinner, and then you would have an after dinner drink. So that was at lunchtime on Sunday. So it was sort of culturally, your life didn't feel complete without it. So I think I had my first sip of wine when I was maybe 8 or 9. It was sort of a grown-up thing to do. Your parents and grandparents would introduce you to wine. So you really felt, that it was the thing to do. Now, the interesting thing, when I first moved here 30 years ago, especially here in the Midwest, I'm in Dublin, Ohio, wine wasn't part of the culture here when I first moved over 30 years ago. So I can remember going out for dinner with friends, and I remember thinking it was strange because they were drinking iced tea and water, and so culturally, that felt very, very different. But obviously, over the last 20, 30 years, things have changed, and I just think that's where the alcohol, you do so well in your book at explaining how, the industry has just sort of programmed us all to thinking it's sort of the norm, really, to be
Mm-hmm.
having, alcohol, in your life. It seems to be, most people think that's what you need to be happy. It needs to
Mm-hmm.
be part of the program. But so anyway, I started now, obviously, in my young years, I could maybe take it or leave it. But, I feel as I look back, maybe in my 30s was when I would start drinking most days. But always it was just maybe a glass of wine with dinner and things like that. But I think 15 years ago, I became aware that really I was having that 2 to 3 glasses and generous glasses. I mean, I think, a normal glass of wine or an average glass of wine should be 4 ounces. Now, how many of us, and that was the other thing in England, your wine glasses were much smaller.
Mm.
Um, where now you get these huge, huge goblets. So I feel, before I stopped drinking, I was having 3 very large glasses of wine a night. So if you look at that, that's possibly, 3/4 of a bottle, which, for me, that was far too much. Um, it's, I feel it's been a lonely journey because,
Mm.
I'm definitely, um, as I look around me, everybody else still drinks wine. And I think my husband was aware that I was struggling some because, some mornings I would just say, we just can't do this. We've got to have some nights off. Um, but of course, he loves his wine. So to this day, he still pours his wine every night and he pours me a sparkling water and is very happy to do that. But I don't think he really understands the struggle it's been. And I read your book first in the fall of 16, and a lot of what you write about for the first time made sense to me. It gave me the education that I had really sort of labeled myself as an alcoholic, and I hated that label. Um, but then I realized with your education that it really wasn't my problem. It was just that the addiction of the wine itself. Um, and I think as I read your book, the first time I had a little bit of success, but then Christmas came, New Year came, and then I read your book again in January of last year. And I just think I just really the light switched on, and I thought, I'm going to do it. Um, and I did take your video course too, and I don't think I could have made it without the video course too. I think listening, the first thing I would do every morning is listen to a new topic that you had in the videos. And I just think, that seemed to just set me up for the day and just made me feel, I could do it. And I just haven't looked back since. Obviously the first week or two are possibly the hardest. And
Mm-hmm.
you definitely have to, when that sort of urge comes, you sort of have to really rationalize with yourself and, you know, make sure you really have that goal. Why am I doing this? Um, and so I've really never looked back. So thank you, thank you. And
That's awesome.
I wish I was brave enough to share my story more with the family. And I do, my daughter, for example, she knows I've read your book. And, my husband does too. And, but it's just interesting. They're not ready at this point to make any changes. And it's not that any of us really overdo it. I was never falling over drunk every night. I mean, it was just, I'm sure I was mellow and happy after 3 glasses, but I still know for me, it wasn't what I wanted in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was still hard to sort of let go. But basically, that's, where I am. Since I stopped drinking wine, it gave me, I've really been into health and nutrition, and I think I shared with you. I took I'm a health coach, and I'm trying to decide what I do with that. My burning passion is I feel I would like to help other people, with, I might lose charge here. I hope I don't. It's telling me I'm 10%, so I'm just trying to see if I can plug you. So, I was encouraged to become a health coach, and I really would like to sort of help other people who are struggling, with their glass of wine every night. And I think there's a lot of people in my generation and my age that, especially on retirement, they fall into those happy hours at 4:30. And I'm sure it's not doing their health any good. And if people are ready and willing, I would love to be able to sort of encourage and be supportive, because I think that was the thing. I felt it was such a lonely road. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yes, I had you, I had the videos. I used to go onto your website and read that every day. I find now I don't, occasionally I go online and reach out to someone if I feel they need support, but it's a very lonely road, I think, because there's still a lot of stigma attached.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
certainly.
basically, that's sort of where I am. I hope I'm a good example for my children. And as time goes by, when I get the right moments, I do talk to my daughter how much better I feel, and how, alcohol is a slippery slope. Because I just feel, I haven't given my children the education they need. Because,
Mm-hmm.
when they were in their formative years and those early teens, it was such an accepted thing for me. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they felt it was a very sort of accepted, and especially for young mothers, they talk about their mummy juice, and it's sort of interesting now being on the sidelines, sort of listening to it all. But that's where I am. So
Oh, that's very, very cool. It's awesome. I was at there's a restaurant near us. It's like kind of on the highway, so it's in a gas station actually. It's like nothing around it. You pull off, there's a gas station and a Mexican restaurant. And there was a sign there. We had lunch there a few days ago, and there was a sign outside of it that said, come in for your morning Corona with your breakfast burrito. And I was like, what? It was so bad. And I was thinking too, okay, if you're picking up a breakfast burrito, you're obviously driving to work. Like that's what you do, is you stop at the gas station to pick up your breakfast burrito to drive to work. And so there's no destination without driving besides that gas station on the side of the
oh
highway.
dear.
And I just thought, wow, this is the level that it's gotten to with, promotion. Like, well, where else can we sell this? Okay, let's start to pair things like beer with breakfast burritos. I mean,
Yeah.
let's start to put,
And
like you
then
were talking about the.
I've even noticed, I mean, for example, if you go into Target, they, in our Target, in some of the shopping carts, they've even got a bottle of wine sort of stamped onto the seat where you sit a child. You know, it's sort of a picture of a wine bottle sort of lying down. And I'm thinking,
Uh,
that's so sad. And even, I mean, and now I don't know if you've seen the wine that they do in the cans. They do sparkling wine now, and you see that in Whole Foods. You know, by the checkout, they've got those cans of sparkling wine and wine in cans, and it looks very attractive. You know, it's in pretty pink cans, and even I've been attracted, but luckily I'm aware because I think, oh, I mean, because I love sparkling water. That's been my savior, sparkling water with lemon. So I think, oh, they've got some nice sparkling water in cans. But when you look at it closely, it's wine.
wow. And that thing about the Target, that's so disturbing because the only people opening the shopping cart to put the kid in are the parents, the mothers, right? And so it's very specific. Somebody saying, shopping is stressful. Shopping with your kid is even more stressful. Let's make it already look like she's put a bottle of wine in here. And the subliminal message of, don't you wish there was a bottle of wine here instead of your child? Like, yes. I mean, the whole thing, I'm obviously speechless because just coming from the industry and knowing what people who are brainstorming that around the boardroom thinking, okay, well, let's look at other ways we can increase wine sales. Mm-hmm. And very specifically targeting parents and mothers even more specifically. It's just, sometimes it's just like, wow, disheartening. But I think that the only way out is often through. And I mean, that's certainly how it was for me. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have my own story. And I think about your family joining you and stuff. It's so often that the people who drink the most end up getting out of it the soonest. And then people they will, because you can't really sustain a lifetime of pretty heavy drinking. And so more and more people are waking up to this, because no matter what the doctor says, the counselor says, other things that just kind of make me incensed, because the question should be, well, how do you feel about it, Sheila? Is it bothering you?
Yeah. And that was I think the biggest disappointment for me. I mean, going to a physician, sharing that I felt I had a problem, and then them sort of telling me, no, you don't have a problem, everything's fine. Go home and enjoy your wine. I mean, I'm thinking, what a thing for a family physician. I've since changed physicians, and now I feel so good when a physician asks me, how much do you drink? And I can look them in the eye and say, I just don't anymore. And it's a really, really good feeling.
Yeah, it's something, really, it's a good feeling, not like a good feeling of getting, it's a deep, good feeling, a deep, wholesome, I am aligning with myself.
Yes.
And now I get to tell you.
And I'm doing something really good for my health. I'm not just, trying to eat well and exercise. So I can, be healthy. Hopefully, I'm hoping I've got 30 years ahead of me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like your mom lived a really long time.
Yes. So, I'm just hoping, and I'm hoping I can somehow along the way help others. And if I get an opportunity, I do. I mean, if, people will often say to me, you're looking really good, what are you doing? And I'll say, actually, I've stopped drinking. And they're always a bit curious, and most of them say, well, I can never do that.
Yeah.
And I just said, well, your body tells you, and you must always listen. If your body's telling you something, listen to it. So
it is an incredible beauty serum, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That takes years off your life. I always see the before and after pictures in the groups, and even just 30 days in, the difference is unbelievable. And like a
Mhm.
year in or 18 months in, it's just like night and day. And you can mostly see it in the eyes. You know, people are clear in their eyes. It's a really cool
Yes.
thing.
And then that's the other thing too. You can look yourself in the morning, you can look in the mirror and you can smile and just, just really appreciate, what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think you talk about that in your book too. But your book's amazing, um, Annie. You know, I and how I found it, I don't know. Most people, you just sort of scroll around on the internet, and it was before it was published.
Oh,
Uh,
good. Cool.
so it was sort of I did it. I think it would have been through Kindle at the time.
Awesome.
But I've since, as soon as you published the paperback, I did order a copy, and I've got it as part of my library. So if I ever feel the right moment to give it to someone, and I'm hoping one day my husband will read it. But and again, my husband doesn't overindulge. But I just know alcohol's got its hooks in him. Just the fact
Yeah.
he needs it every night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Now,
It's so,
does your husband drink?
he did for about a year after I stopped. And then I had a kind of trump card a little bit because I said, I'm about to publish this book, so you have to read it because I talk about all sorts of stuff. I need to know that this is okay with you. And so he read it, and then he was like, wow, that's really fascinating. He's like, I don't think I'm going to stop drinking. But then almost immediately he stopped regular drinking, and then he would drink for, he has a group of friends, college friends, and they would go to football games together. So he'd have beers when they'd go to football games, like once or twice a year. And then that just ended too. So I think it's been about 2 years since he's had anything to drink. But he never
Yeah,
once said, it was very peaceful for him. He never once was like, okay, I'm going to, join you or stop or anything like that. It was really just much more of he read it and it just kind of worked on him, and it just
yeah,
like stewed. And then every time he got offered a drink, eventually he just was like, man, I don't ever see the point anymore. So I think it was really cool.
yeah. And I do think the actual education of what alcohol really does to your body. Um, I just think that's where your book really helps because it's just so factual.
Yeah.
Um, and what it does to your brain, especially. And I think I was really touched when I read what it does to the young alcohol brain and how you talk about, the brain really isn't formed till you're in your early 20s. So can you imagine for me if I was drinking at that 15 and 16, it's sort of a miracle. I am who I am.
Yeah, the body's miraculous, that's for sure. Very resilient to all of this crazy stuff we do to it.
Yes, yes.
Well, this is great. So I always end the podcast with one question, which is, if you could go back and talk to the Sheila who's going to her physician or her counselor and waking up in the middle of the night and, had some fears of, I feel like I should be maybe looking at this, but I don't even know how. I mean, the response you said that your friends say is so common. People, well, I could never do that. I mean, that's the default belief that we have is that I could never do that. I'm, it would be too hard. And it's not really actually so hard, but if you could go back and talk to her and just tell her what life is like for you now, what would you say?
Just that it's wonderful and that I feel amazing. I feel free. And it's just so wonderful not to have to depend, on a drug like alcohol. And you just wake up every morning feeling alive instead of waking up every morning feeling depressed and anxious and beating yourself up.
It's
So I
beautiful.
wake up without any misgivings and just know I've got a good day ahead of me.
It's beautiful. And it just keeps getting better and better. I mean, I remember feeling really good at 18 months, but how I feel now, 4 years in is like it's like just better and better and better. So
And
awesome.
because there are days when just occasionally, I mean, I would say if it happens once in 3 months, but just occasionally you feel that sort of monster just reappearing. And, and you might be planning a nice special meal and you might think, wouldn't it be nice if I could have that glass of wine, with this meal? But it it lasts for a second, because then I just sort of reflect back on this. Maybe it would be nice, but it's really more the glamour of it, and that sparkling wine with lemon is going to be equally just as good. And then I don't
Yeah.
have that fear of sliding down the slippery slope.
And that's the thing, is that, you think, okay, that first few sips might be nice. Certainly there's that 20 minutes of a bit of a euphoric feeling, but that's followed by 2 to 3 hours of feeling quite uneasy, which we end up drinking more wine to counteract.
Yes.
And then it just starts this chain reaction of, where on the whole, I was just actually speaking to a woman earlier this morning, and she had gone 7 months, and then she just sort of drifted back into it. I always say there's 2 main ways that people drift back into drinking, either sort of celebration or commiseration. So they're celebrating something, and that nice meal you're talking about, a birthday party, whatever, or it's something where they're stressed and they just feel like, oh, I just need this. And so they drift back into it somewhat mindlessly. And stopping again for people is really, really tough, because what happens, the whole method, this naked mind, as you are very well familiar with, is to overcome the unconscious conditioning. And if you slip back into drinking during one of those 2 things, it's a really nice time anyway. So the wine tells your unconscious mind and your conscious mind, yes, this is fun, but guess what? You're right, with your sparkling water and lemon, it was equally as fun. And that actually only lasted a few seconds, that thought. And then equally, if you slip back into it for stress, alcohol will numb you. And so you will feel a temporary relief from your stress, which will tell really, because your experiences are always by far and away the greatest influencer of your unconscious mind. There's nothing that I can say or that you can read that's going to influence as much as your experience. So in both those instances, you've given your subconscious an experience, and that's what hooks us in the beginning. It's an experience of, yes, this is true in the moment. It tells my mind something, but your mind doesn't process the fact that, oh, wait, now I feel bad 20 minutes later, next morning. It doesn't connect those dots. It just says, okay, we did this thing and it felt good in the moment. And that's kind of that, it's your conscious mind that has to connect those dots and then be able to make that conscious decision, so that you don't give that like directive to your subconscious that this is a good thing or important thing. And so anyway, I was talking to this woman, and 7 months, totally free, happy, so excited, and then just drifted back into it with, I think it was a birthday party, and she is just so struggling to stop again. And I think it's like really, really be mindful.
I only have to think back to those sort of that first week, and I'm thinking, oh no, I'm not that I had shakes or crazy withdrawals, but I'm still thinking I'm not ever doing that again.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So, I know. So
well, thank you so much, Sheila. It's such an honor to hear your
thank
story.
you, and thank you for all the good work you do and spreading the word. And I just wish you success, and I'm sure your live groups that you're doing, I mean, I wish those had been available when I needed them, because I would certainly have been part of those. But the good thing is I did it anyway. So
yes, very strong. That's awesome.
Well, it's not necessarily, I think that's what people talk about. Once you recognize alcohol for what it is, it really is quite easy.
Yeah.
But it's just getting your head around that thought.
Getting your thinking right.
Yeah.
Well, awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here, being courageous. This is just beautiful. And I really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Okay.
This has been Annie Grace with This Naked Mind podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can learn more at thisnakedmind.com. And please remember to rate, review, and subscribe, as it really helps us spread the word.